So, okay, we're good. Okay, now I'm gonna have to probably mute myself because there might be a lag. But I'm gonna just really quickly introduce Lorrie. Lorrie Gray is a silver leader in dōTERRA. She has a growing team in the Los Angeles area. She is a life coach, and she has offered to share with us this topic of letting go of scarcity mentality or scarcity mindset. And I'm so grateful for this because I think it's something that we can all relate to and we can all use the help on a regular basis because we all fight different stuff. It's just part of human nature and having ups and downs in life, right? So I'm just going to take it, let Lorrie take it away, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Lorrie. Is that good?
That works great.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear from you.
Awesome. All right, my friends. So I'm going to introduce myself just mostly a little bit more as we go on. But yes, I am a life coach. I work holistically with people. I work with women and men in groups and individually, and we do all kinds of fun stuff. And scarcity is one of those things I wouldn't say like I teach on as a primary topic, but it sort of comes up a lot in all different areas. And whenever I'm working with my dōTERRA team, which we actually just started an 8-week training around the new sales guide, which is very fun. And one of the first things that comes up, and that comes up a lot, is this idea of not having enough time and just really feeling scarce around time and money. So this has been on my mind a lot lately and really excited to share a little bit with you guys. Okay. So I do want to say though, just to prepare you guys, I have sometimes heard people speak on this topic and other topics, and I listen to them and it's honestly really profound, right? Like they share these amazing like insights and these super quotable moments, and I'm just in awe of their like deep thinkingness. That is less the focus of today. Like I'm not concerned with you guys going away and feeling like it was super quotable or you learned this brand new insight that you'd never heard. As a coach, what I like to do is help people go from where they're at to where they're going. So from point A to point B. And if right now we're at scarcity, I just want to see if we can help you guys get to point B, even if it doesn't look super flowery or like really profound. I just want to get really actionable, practical steps and tools to get you guys towards there. So that's what we're going to do. Now, most of you guys probably get this when we talk about scarcity, but just so we're on the same page, when we say scarcity, we're talking about this state of really being in short supply. And we might also use words like lacking or wanting. Some people talk about something being limited, or I've heard this referred to as a poverty mentality. That was how I was originally introduced to scarcity, was as a poverty mentality, or this belief that there's just simply not enough to go around. So there's a lot of words here, but anything that falls into this, we don't have quite enough as we need, qualifies as scarcity. And I like to think of a scarcity mindset as really just viewing the world through this lens of not enough. But we all have these. We've got these mindsets or these belief systems, and they're really, really important because you're going to see in the world whatever it is you think you're going to see. It's really fascinating the way that our mind works, but we actually create our own experience of reality with our thinking. And the technical term for this is confirmation bias. You guys may have heard of this. But basically, if you believe there isn't enough, not enough time or not enough money, you're going to find evidence of that in everything that's happening. And you're just going to collect more and more and more because that's what you're already looking for. Where if you have this belief that there actually is plenty and there is enough, you will actually take some of those exact same situations that right now feel very scarce, and in your mind they will get translated to feeling very abundant without the situation changing at all. We're always just seeing what we're looking for. So this becomes very important. And you guys may be familiar with these, but this is what scarcity sounds like for a lot of people, and this is what it feels like for a lot of people. But I have to say, for myself, I was in a scarcity mindset, but I actually missed it. I didn't identify for a lot of years that I was dealing with scarcity because it didn't look the way that I expected it to. I wasn't like always looking at our finances and saying, oh my goodness, we're so poor and we don't have enough money. I was like, no, like we're getting by, like we're fine. But it wasn't that classic scarcity. Like I felt very grateful, and I actually felt fairly content in a lot of parts of my life. but I always felt like I was rushing. Yeah, like I always felt like I was behind. And in terms of my business, the scarcity mindset within my business looked like this sort of frantic energy inside of me to get to a future destination. Like, especially in terms of goals and things. When I thought about reaching a goal or the things that I was working towards in my business, inside of me, it was not peaceful. Like I said, just really, really, really frantic, hurried energy. I was just really rushing to try to get there very, very quickly. Now, I want to distinguish this though, and this is going to start to get into what we're talking about today, that getting to our goals and reaching our goals quickly is fine. Like, that's a wonderful thing. Like, I love reaching goals quickly. I love setting them and achieving them, and it's a whole lot of fun. But I like doing it from a place of peace and love and excitement, and reaching a goal quickly from a place of peace and love and really feeling abundant is very different than reaching it quickly because the entire time we felt like we were in lack and we had to hurry up and get there. So the actions themselves, what we do as we pursue our goals, what we do in terms of our schedules, what we do with our money, I really want you guys to see is going to be transformed by the emotion that you're feeling when you take that action. And the emotional landscape and what's happening within you when you go do the things that you do is what's going to determine whether or not it's a positive or negative experience for you and whether or not it's helpful or harmful. So most of tonight, I'm not going to even get too into specifics and what exactly we're doing in terms of actions, because what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for another person. I'm just concerned with why you're doing it and what's the emotions that are happening when you're trying to do what you're doing. Now, I can't see the chat box, so Amy, you might be able to give me some of these, but I'm also curious for you guys. Whenever I think about scarcity, the things that come up for me are time and money and energy, physical energy, but also that mental energy, you know, when we start to say, oh my goodness, my brain is so full, I don't have any brain space, I'm feeling burnt out, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's all kind of mental energy and mental space. But do you guys have, I'm curious if you guys have anything else when you look at your life outside of time, money, and energy that feels scarce to you. And if so, just put it in there and maybe we can come back to that. But mostly I'm just super duper curious to see, because these are all of my main ones, and these are the ones that I hear a lot. But I'm guessing if you're dealing with scarcity, you are dealing with one of these. And I want to share a little bit about my story and let you guys know I can really, really relate to all three of these. So I have got a genetic condition that affects the connective tissue in my joints. If I had to oversimplify it, it means that my joints dislocate easily, and not, like the way that some people have joints that slip out and it's just kind of fun, more so like you would think of like someone having an injury dislocation in sports, like those kinds of dislocations that are very painful. That happens easy for me. And for a period of time in my life, it was very bad. I spent about just a little over 5 years, from the fall of 2009 until the end of 2014, completely bedbound by this because none of my joints would stay in place. And I was using a wheelchair if I left the house. And it was a rough 5 years. I'm not gonna lie, totally rough on a whole lot of levels. And there was this whole recovery process where I got introduced to dōTERRA. I'd been using essential oils anyway, but really got introduced to dōTERRA and started exploring diet and supplements. And there was this whole recovery process where I got introduced to dōTERRA. I'd been using it. There's like feedback on my end. Sorry, that was so funny. I could hear myself from before. No, you're all good. But anyway, so there was what I consider a recovery process. But this condition for me is not ever going to go away. Okay, it's permanent and it is degenerative to some. Degenerative is what they're saying. I don't know what to predict from that, and I also have a number of other things going on. So what that meant for me is once I did get a little bit better though, when I was out of the wheelchair, I'd been in this bed for 5 years, right? Like for 5 years, I really, in my mind, I told this story about how I'd missed out on so many things. And I was behind on my kids' childhood, and I was behind on all these things. And I would get up, guys, every single day. And just the story in my head was that I'm behind and that there was not enough. And I would start the day thinking how I didn't get enough sleep, and there isn't enough time, and I don't have enough energy, and I'm not patient enough. And overall, basically, that I'm not enough. And just rushing through every single day trying to catch up to something. That was the crazy day, the day that I actually sat there and said, but who am I catching up to? Like, and who said I'm behind? And where did this come from? You know, and my answer is the same one that I want to present to you guys, that like this isn't coming from anybody else, and it wasn't coming from outside of myself, and it wasn't even based on anything factual. It was just a story that I was telling in my mind that I was perpetuating every day with the way that I was thinking. And it felt really terrible. But I do have actual factual limitations. And I want to make a distinction here. Okay, so these are some things that are limited for me. There are a lot of them, and these are just a few. But having factual limitations is different than the emotion of feeling scarce. They're not the same thing. But I share this not for any sort of comparison, but I want you guys to understand that every day it would be easy to wake up and feel scarce and look at my limitations and fall into a scarcity mindset around time and energy and money and a number of different things. It would be very easy for me to do that. Being in a state of abundance is a conscious choice that I have to make, and it doesn't always come easily. But I have done it, and I can do it, and I do live in a space that most of the time feels very open and peaceful and abundant and filled with so much gratitude for the life that I have. But this is kind of where I'm coming from. This is what I was facing when I figured out how are we going to do the scarcity thing. But I love The Big Leap, and you guys have probably read this, but this quote was so impactful for me that if I keep creating this evidence and talking about all the limitations I have and talking about all of these things that hold me back and all the reasons that I have less time than everybody else, and if I keep building up this evidence for my limitations, yeah, not only do I get to keep them, but they feel even bigger because I'm just putting all of my energy and focusing where my limitations are. And I don't focus there. I don't deny their reality. It's just not where most of my mental energy goes. And I know that, like I said, an actual factual limitation is different from an emotion of feeling scarce. So what I want us to talk about today is how to get to a different way of thinking, to move in towards, you know, a mindset or a way of thinking or whatever word you want to use here for that's much more focused on abundance. And it might be stretching what we're going to talk about. But I just want to say before we get started, before we even go into this and I start presenting different ways of thinking, expect your brain to argue with everything I'm getting ready to say. Okay, because as much as we look at it, we're like, oh man, it would be so great to just be abundant and not be in scarcity. The truth is, most of us are actually really, really committed to our current ways of thinking. Our current beliefs that we have, we're very limited to that, or we're very committed to them. And a lot of times, actually, if someone challenges them, what we do is we go back and we double down on them and really try to create evidence that no, what we're thinking is really true. Even if those beliefs are negative or painful or hurtful or harmful or make us feel very scarce in our life, the truth is they're comfortable and they're familiar. And so we often prefer the discomfort that we are used to than the discomfort of something new. So just know, if you feel a little uncomfortable today and you feel that you feel the urge to defend yourself or argue with me, that's totally natural and that's normal. And I'm not offended at all. That's okay. Okay. So again, I would love to be able to just talk to every single one of you and see where you're at on this, but I think it's a good point right now to, like I said, as a coach, I like to help people get from point A to point B, but to really be able to understand within yourself, like, is this something that's true for you? And not judge it. Okay. We spend a lot of time not really being honest with ourselves because we know there's judgment on the other side. But I'd love for you guys just to be able to answer this question for yourself and it not be a matter of judgment. Like if right now you're in scarcity, awesome. Now we know that. We've got that information and we can move forward with it. But I'm just going to assume that if you're here, this is probably true of you. It's probably why you showed up. That or you were just very curious. Okay, so here we go. Are you guys ready for this? I have some great news. Fantastic news. And that is if you realize that right now you are in scarcity, you're going to be okay. I think it's so fascinating. I will talk to people and they share like something like this, that, oh my goodness, I really deal with a scarcity mindset. And they say it like, I've got terminal stage 5 cancer. Like they say it like this, it's this inevitable end thing, like it's some sort of disease. Okay, it's not a disease and you're not dying. It's okay, all right? We're gonna be fine. And I'm gonna walk you guys through this. So if you're feeling a little tense, even about going through this webinar, just take a few breaths right now, okay? Take some deep breaths, make sure your chest is open, make sure you can breathe. And we are going to start off by taking some of this down a notch to make sure it's not quite so intense for you guys. All right, this is something I've been encouraged to show people. Sometimes when I teach, I jump to this being knowledge that everybody has, but everybody doesn't have this knowledge. So let me show this to you and you will hear me as I talk. This is going to come up all the time. But on the right side in the purple, this is what is known as the self-coaching model. This is just a teaching tool that was developed by my coach. Her name is Brooke Castillo. She's fantastic. But when she started working with her clients and training coaches like me, she writes it out like this so we can understand how the world works. But in a nutshell, there are circumstances and things that happen in the world, things that are factual, things that are outside of us, things that we can't control. And a lot of us misunderstand and we think that those things create our feelings or our emotions. But if we're going to get a handle on this scarcity thing, what you guys need to understand is that the circumstances of your life are not creating your emotions. All they are is a trigger for thought patterns. And it is your thoughts, the way that you think about things, that creates your emotions. And a lot of times we don't give emotions enough credit, but they're very important because they are what drive our actions or our inactions or our reactions. And the things that we consistently do is what gives us the results that we have. But it's all always coming back to the thoughts. And it's always the way that we're thinking about things that ultimately get to us, that give us the life that we have. And I want to bring this up because as we jump into this, I want you guys to be able to distinguish the emotions of feeling scarce, the types of thoughts and sentences that come from scarcity, and the actual circumstances of your life. Now, feeling scarce is an emotion. It's coming from thinking. This is different from the actual math of your life. And I just want to mention this briefly. But if you are trying to fit 26 hours of activities into 24 hours of time, it doesn't fit. Okay, that's not a scarcity thing. That's not a scarcity problem. It's not a mindset problem. That's just a math problem. If I look at my day and I have slots open for 6 coaching clients and 8 people want to coach with me, it simply doesn't fit. But what I want you guys to see is that's not emotional, and that doesn't create any sort of emotional discomfort for me to look at. I've got 6 slots and 8 people want those slots. It's just a math problem. And then all I'm going to do is focus on a solution, and it's not emotional at all. I might open up some more hours, or I might say no to some people or whatever. So I don't want to focus so much today on the circumstances and on the specific things and how many hours you're doing. That kind of falls into time management. I just want to know that if you look at the amount of time that you have and you're having an emotion of scarcity, that's not coming from the facts, that's coming from the way that you're thinking about it. But what we really want to know is, how do we let go of it, right? Like if we're there, how do we let go of this thinking? And I'm just going to I'm going to talk about 4 different concepts today, and they're all going to center around our thoughts. Here's our first one, guys. We one of the reasons I like this self-coaching model is because it just refers to all of this mindset stuff as thoughts, just sentences in our brain. But sometimes we talk about stuff like scarcity and we will look at it and we'll say, oh my goodness, I have these really deep rooted beliefs, right? Or I have these like really long standing mindsets. I've got these ingrained perspectives. And we talk about this stuff in a way that makes it seem huge, and it makes it seem insurmountable, and it seems big, and it seems difficult, and it seems really, really scary. It's just some thoughts, okay? Thoughts are sentences in your brain. You're having some sentences in your brain. And any sort of belief that you have is just a thought that you repeated a lot, but it's still just a sentence in your brain. And a mindset is just kind of a collection of these sentences that all loosely go together. But I really need you guys to see that nothing's wrong here. So what happened was you had a thought that was kind of scarce in nature, and then you thought it a bunch of times, and you just got really good at thinking it. And it's like if you're driving a car down a dirt road, like I don't know about you all, but I grew up in country with country roads and country lanes, and they weren't all paved. But there were places in the road where the cars had driven a lot of times and developed these ruts in the road. And if you were going to drive down that road, it was just so much easier to drive, put your tires right where everybody else's tires had been, and drive right down that lane. It didn't mean that you couldn't drive elsewhere, but it was kind of a bumpier ride if you tried to get off of those lanes. And this is sort of what this is like. Our brains just really like efficiency. And once our brains have practiced a thought for a while, it sort of puts it to long-term storage, and it doesn't think about it so much. It just does it on autopilot. But it's still not a huge deal. There really is just there are just some sentences going through your brain, and you just got good at thinking them. And the important thing I want you to see with this is the coolest news ever, is that all thoughts are optional. All thoughts are completely optional. If you are thinking something right now that feels terrible, I want you to know you don't have to keep thinking that way, and you can think something else. Thinking a new thought on purpose is completely and totally within your control. But that's not going to happen immediately. This is the thing. Sometimes we get in a hurry. We're like, oh, right, I could think something else that would feel better and would not be scarce, and there are these abundant thoughts. But it doesn't happen immediately. I did a little bit of math on this. Most of us, they've estimated that the average human has about 60,000 thoughts a day. It's a bunch. It's a bunch of thoughts. It ends up being like, one a second. And if you think about how many years you've dealt with a mindset or a belief system that felt somewhat scarce to you, if we just had to take I just threw some numbers out there, but like, let's say you've been dealing with scarcity to some extent for 10 years, and maybe 1,000 times a day, which I think for most of us is actually a low estimate. We have some sort of thought about there not being enough, not enough time, not enough energy, I didn't get enough sleep, I don't have enough of this. If you have 100 scarce thoughts a day for 10 years, we're talking about 3.5 million times that your brain has gone down that neural pathway. We think about those ruts in the road, it's been going down that path for a long time, and there's been a lot of times that neural pathway is run. So we have this idea that we're going to listen to one webinar, right? Or read one really amazing Instagram quote on scarcity, and then suddenly it's gone. Like, I don't know, but I listened to that quote, or I listened to that person, or I read this book, and they had some really amazing things to say. And while we're thinking about what the person has to say, we feel better. And then before we know it, our thoughts are back the way that they used to be. I just want you guys to know that that's normal. Like, of course it is. You've thought the new thought, or this new affirmation or this new teaching, you've thought it like once or twice or maybe 5 or 10 times, but you may have thought these very scarce thoughts several million times. And you can't expect to just think it one time and it be gone and done. It takes some commitment and it takes some practice, and that's all part of the process, and it's totally fine. The other thing with this, I think that sometimes we can get caught up in trying to figure out where it came from, like, why do I think this way? And we can move into looking at our parents or our teachers or our friends, or, we can easily start to move into blame and really easily start to try to focus on trying to figure out how we got here and why we think this way, and spend a lot of time arguing with reality and saying we shouldn't think this way and it shouldn't have happened and our parents shouldn't have done it the way that they did, whatever. We spend a lot of time there. And the truth is, I care about you, but I don't really care where it came from. What I care about, and I mean, it could be an interesting discussion. Like, it's a fascinating discussion to go back and see where it came from. And I find it interesting, but all the hows and whys and wheres of our scarcity mindset doesn't really serve us. It doesn't help with a solution. What I want you to know is that you and you alone are responsible for how you choose to think today. I don't care how your parents thought. If you're having a sentence run through your brain right now, you're in charge of that brain, and you can train it to think something else. You can control your thinking. And you can choose what you're going to think about these things going forward. But most of us don't do this. Most of us just live at the effect of our thinking, and we never question it. A sentence runs through our brain and it creates an emotion, and we respond to the emotion like it's the gospel truth. And our brains are just completely running on autopilot, doing whatever it is they do, and we just kind of let them. But you can make a conscious choice about what you're going to think. And this is really, really important to know that you can control it. You don't have to just keep thinking the same way. And I think one of the easiest ways to shift into this, to start thinking differently and to start developing some different thoughts, is really just to focus on factual truths about these things, because we can get kind of dramatic in our own minds. And rather than trying to change everything all at once and move from scarcity to this amazing abundant thinking, like, what if we just started with some facts? What if we just started with some things that were really neutral? Because we look at our schedule and we say, oh my gosh, I have so much to do today. But instead of saying, I have so much to do today, what if you just said, I have 12 items on my task list? Because 12 items on your task list or your to-do list, I want you to see that that's actually neutral. Because for one person, 12 things might be a lot, or that might be a lot to you. But to someone else, 12 might feel just right. Like, of course I can get 12 done. Or to somebody else who's very high functioning, 12 items might feel like a day off to them. So having 12 items on your task list is not necessarily, or it doesn't create any sort of emotion. It's that thought of, oh my goodness, I have so much to do today, that makes us feel overwhelmed. But if instead of talking about it that way, if you just actually work with the facts, it takes the emotional charge out of it, and it reminds you that, yeah, you've got 12 items on there. And then how do you want to think about that? Or the same thing with debt. I have talked to people and they will have a certain amount of debt and they will feel so overwhelmed with it. But if you've never had any debt and then suddenly you've got, 10 grand in debt, it might feel like a ton to you. And you might be terrified of it. But I have known people who have been $1 million in debt. And if they were $1 million in debt and they got down to 12,000, they would be celebrating, right? It's like nothing. It's like, whoa, we are almost there. So the amount of debt is neutral. It's completely and totally neutral. And it doesn't have an emotional charge, not until you have a thought about it. Same thing with how many errands we're running or all those different things. So if we can work with the facts, it helps us take some of this emotion down a notch. Oops, hello screen. I don't know if it wants to go forward. There it is. I hit it a couple times, so we may have it jump ahead a bunch. But with time, this was a huge one for me. I used to, every time I looked at time, every time I looked at my schedule, I was like, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time. And I just felt that frantic, rushed. And then I just moved on to facts that everybody gets the same 24 hours. And I added on a little bit of an empowering statement that still felt pretty neutral, which is I get to decide what to do with mine. Right, which is true for all of us. And sometimes we might feel obligation, or we might even say things like, oh my goodness, I have to do this stuff. Fact is, guys, there's very little that we have to do. Right, we're like, oh my gosh, well, but I have to pay my electricity bill. Like, no, actually you don't. Like, you don't have to pay that. Like, And if you don't, all that's going to happen is you're not going to have electricity. So whenever I look at my electricity bill or my taxes, I'm like, oh my goodness, I love paying my electricity bill because I like light. Instead of saying, I have to pay this and really disliking it. But I'm like, no, I get to decide what I do with my time. I get to decide what I do with my life and really step into a place that's a bit more empowered. And this may seem minor to you guys. It's not a huge shift, but the huge part, the really, really big thing here is that it feels different on an emotional level. And when we feel different emotionally, we actually act different. That's why the emotions are so important. And thinking in ways that feel better and feel less emotionally charged often lead us to take better action. Because if you guys feel overwhelmed, like really think about this, like if the emotion you're experiencing is overwhelm, I want you to really think about what kind of actions you take in your life. For me, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, it leads to a whole lot of nothing, inaction, and I get almost nothing done if I feel overwhelmed because I get very paralyzed. And so I'm very careful not to think in ways that feel emotionally overwhelming. I try to just keep it very neutral or empowering as much that I can. And that's what I really want for you guys, is to feel empowered so you know how to do this. But the other thing is to do the work to just build a new mindset around this. Like I said, your old mindset is just a collection of thoughts. You got good at thinking them. And it kind of went to long-term storage. It's like brushing your teeth. Like when you guys brush your teeth, you don't have to think really consciously about doing it, right? Like there was one point when you were learning how to do that where you had to really think about it. And you had to consciously, you make decisions to do it well. But now most of us, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'm reading on my phone while I'm brushing my teeth and I'm not thinking about it even a little bit. Because my brain knows how to do that completely on autopilot. And this is what's happened with our mindsets around scarcity, is it just went to long-term storage. And so there's this space where we just need to pull it out of long-term storage and be really intentional and conscious about it for a while. And then once it's built and your brain gets better at thinking this new way than the old way, then it'll become automatic as well. It won't always be such hard work as it is right now, but you have to put the work in up front. You can practice and you can get very good at thinking something else. And so the biggest thing here, guys, is just deciding, like making a decision. If any thought in the world is available to you, like what do you want to think on purpose if you were just going to pick something out? But I would encourage you guys to choose this really wisely and really look at what the thoughts you're thinking are producing for you emotionally. And sometimes we have to try them on almost like we're going clothes shopping, right? Like we might know we want a shirt, but we have to try on a few before we find one that works just right. When I was trying to work to find ways of thinking that helped me get my work done, one of the thoughts I tried on at one point was, this work is so important and people really need it right away. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'll probably feel really motivated if I think that way. But as soon as I said, people need this right away, I didn't feel motivated, I felt pressured. Okay, and it felt very heavy on me, and it actually didn't feel good. Even though that seems like a very positive thought, emotionally for me personally, it didn't feel good. And so I tried it on. I just tried it out. Like I was just curious. And I'm like, oh, nope, that feels like pressure. Let's find a new one. Because when I feel pressure, I avoid my work. And instead, I just switched to the work that I'm doing is valuable. And then I just felt very valuable. And it was just much more natural for me to move forward and share it with people. But here's whenever I tell people that you can just decide a new thought, people sometimes get caught up in this idea of whether or not it's true. And I'm going to let you guys in on a secret that you may not want to hear, but it's true. And that is that we're all a lot more illogical than we think we are. And something doesn't have to be true necessarily for you to believe it or think it. Now, I'm not saying go believe lies, but what I want you to know is that you think things all the time that aren't true and you don't even question them. I wish I could see a raise of hands to see how many of you at some point have had the thought of, I'm not valuable or I'm not worthy. And it felt really true to you. but it's still not true. The only qualification, the only requirement to being 100% valuable and worthy is existing. And yet we have this thought of I'm not valuable, and we totally believe it, even though it's not true. And we look at the future and we believe things all the time that we can't know. I don't know about you guys, but like I go to the dentist with my kids and they're like, can we make an appointment for them for 6 months from now? And I have no idea if we're going to be alive in 6 months or what's going to happen in 6 months, but we make appointments with the assumption that of course we're going to be around, and of course we're going to be alive, and of course we're going to be able to go to the dentist. But the truth is, I don't know that to be true, and neither do you. So looking at my future and saying something like, you know, we're always going to have enough money for the things that are really and truly important. I don't know that any more than I know that we're going to be able to go to the dentist in 6 months, but I still believe I'm going to be able to go to the dentist, and it's not harmful for me to believe I'm always going to be taken care of. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, the bottom line is, you can actually believe whatever you want to believe. You don't have to justify it to anyone. You don't have to be able to explain it to anybody. You don't even have to back it up. You can just decide what you want to believe. You can decide what you want to think, and you can choose to do it on purpose. The facts won't change. The facts are going to be the facts are going to be the facts. I don't believe in lying to ourselves about facts, but you can choose a different thought. And I like some of these. As I look at like abundant thinking and I look at my life, I really think that there is enough time, and making money is easy. And I believe that I've got the things that I need, and I believe that there's enough. And when I look at the world, I'm not asking questions about what is wrong. I'm asking questions of my life based on the assumption that there is enough. You know, maybe it is possible. What's next? Like, what's going right? And I think about these things in my mind, and it feels very expansive to me. I'm going to give you guys a few more examples of what this might look like if you're new to abundant thinking. But before we do that, I want to give you a couple tools, just 2 really practical tools if we're looking at a new mindset. Now, one of the things that I have heard that we can use for this are affirmations. I like the idea of affirmations. Affirmations are typically very positive I am statements. You know, I am rich, I am successful, I am good enough. And we say these I am statements. Theoretically, I like this. Or there's ones like this. This is a more of an affirmative statement from The Big Leap as well that I really liked, and I repeated it for a while, and it was fantastic. But here is the kick. Here's the ticket. Here's the part that makes affirmations work or not work, is that it has to be believable. If I look at my life and I say, I am rich, but that doesn't feel true, rather than creating a new belief in my mind and rather than moving me towards a more positive place, my brain is going to spend all of its energy arguing with that and telling me why that's not actually true and why we're not actually rich. And you end up in kind of an argument with your brain. So it needs to be true, and it needs to be something that your brain can believe. And so if there is something that you want to believe about abundance that right now doesn't feel believable to you and doesn't feel true, these are just 2 ways that you can get there. This first one is called ladder thoughts. And so we look at the bottom, what we're currently believing, something like I don't have enough time. And we look at where we want to go, which is I've got all the time that I need. And that's a big, big, big jump. And so what you can do is you can just ladder up beliefs and go slightly more positive and slightly more positive until you get there. You don't have to make this huge jump all at once. So for me, the bridge between I don't have enough time and I've got all the time I need was just simply that I decide how to use the time that I have. And that felt so much more neutral and believable to me. But guys, these are great. I can't impress on you enough the power of neutral statements when we're working on beliefs. I work with women a lot on weight loss and body image and self-love. And a lot of times they will come to me with this belief of, like, their thought about their body is, I hate my body, right? Like they just really do, they hate it. And they love the idea of getting to a place where they can say, I love my body. But that is so far of a jump, guys, from I hate to I love. It's way too far. So we start with just saying, I have a body. I have a body. We don't label it as good or bad. We just focus on this neutrality of having one, which feels so much better. It takes out all of the self-loathing and all of the hate, and we just settle into this very neutral place. And then from there, we can start working towards the more positive beliefs. Or for me, initially, I had a belief that said I'm not good enough. And I wanted to get to a place where I could look at myself and say I am good enough, but I couldn't make that jump. And honestly, anytime I tried to repeat the affirmation, I am good enough, I just burst out into tears, and it wasn't going very well for me. So instead, my affirmation, and this is actually still taped to my desk, by the way, is I would just say, I am me. It's very neutral. Nothing about good enough or not good enough, just I am me. I'm a human, I'm a person, I exist. And that was my very neutral thought. And then I took one baby step up from I am me to I matter. Okay, I matter. And I hung out at I am me, I matter until that became very comfortable. And then I took another ladder step and another ladder step until eventually I got to I am good enough. And now I can look myself in the eye and I can say that and really believe that it's true. But I had to work my way up. So it is okay to find an in-between middle ground thought that feels better than your current thinking, but isn't quite all the way to abundance. Okay, this isn't a race. It's not about doing it perfectly. It's about growth. The other thing you can do is add some prefixes to the affirmative statement that you want to believe. So I used to believe I'm behind, right? Like I'm behind. And I wanted to get to a place where I could look at my life and say, like, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Like this is good. Like I'm right here. But I couldn't make that jump. And so I added some words on to the front of it. So first I started with like maybe. Like, well, maybe I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And I could just consider it there. I did ones like I'm learning to believe that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm open to the idea that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Or I'm becoming a person who believes she's right where she's supposed to be. And you guys can take these because they will feel more true. If you're working on thoughts, being able to say like, I'm becoming a person who believes this, or I'm learning to believe this, oftentimes that is going to feel much more true to us. And so our brain's not going to argue, but you can also start getting those really positive, abundant ways of thinking into your mind, minus the argument with your brain. Okay, so I went through and I tried to think of a few of these if you're still curious what some of these thoughts might look like. And I just went through and I looked at, for time and money and energy, some of what my past beliefs were, like what I was thinking that felt scarce. And I think it's always good to kind of get an idea of where we're at. And then on the right side of the page, I've got some sample ones that I'm intentionally choosing right now. So money is huge, especially for those of us who have businesses. There's the amount of money that we have, but also our general mindsets about money. And mine were very, very scarce. I just thought money in general was like this very difficult thing, and there wasn't very much of it. And now when I think about money, when someone says money, like I think the first emotion I feel is kind of like a happiness, almost like a giddy thing, because I've trained myself to think that making money is very fun and that I'm good at it. And it's not super difficult. And I used to think that it took a whole lot of time to make money, but now I really believe that money follows value. And so I really see making money as something that's inevitable because I'm adding so much value to the world, and that money is just going to follow the value. So I like these, and yours might look different. Like, so a lot of these, for me, these were very specific ones around making money, because that's where my thoughts needed help. But yours just might be things like there's enough, right? There's plenty of money to go around. We have everything that we need. Time, oh my goodness. Yeah, there was just a lot of like, I'm never going to get it done. I'm behind. There's not enough hours in the day. And there shouldn't be so much to do. I think that was funny. Like I always had this thought, like there just shouldn't be this much. Where does this come from? And I said, I laddered up to really first just thinking very neutral thoughts and somewhat empowering ones. I would look at my to-do list and I would say, okay, I'm capable. I may not be able to get all of it done, but I'm capable of getting my most important work done. I can get my most important things done. And then I would prioritize and I would start with those things. But I think so much differently now. Like now I look at it and I'm like, oh my goodness, who better than me to get all this done? I can get twice this amount done. Like, this is fine. And I look at time now, and I look at my schedule, and I look at all of these things, and I just feel very positive about my ability in this area. And when I feel positive and I feel very capable around my ability to manage time and get my work done, I'm more productive. I don't find myself procrastinating as much. And it leads to me to really working when it's time to work. Energy, like I said, energy is an interesting one for me. I want to distinguish here for energy too between kind of physical and emotional energy. I actually, with my health conditions, there are days when I genuinely wake up and I have very little physical energy. Okay, and if you lack physical energy, it becomes a neutral circumstance that you get to decide what you think about. Today I started coaching very early. I've had back-to-back clients all day long, and this is actually a little bit late for me to be up and about and energetic and talking. And I will likely need to take tomorrow morning off. Okay, tomorrow morning I blocked out, and I will probably just need to chill to build up my energy. But that's, again, just math. That's me looking at how much energy I have and choosing to use it, and it doesn't create an emotion for me. Okay, physical sensations in the body are different from emotions. But once we're feeling tired or exhausted or sick or whatever those things are, the way that we choose to think about them can make them better or worse. And so if I am physically tired in a very factual way, which will happen tomorrow, I can sit around and think about it and think about, oh my gosh, this is so awful. This is just terrible. Like, I'm just exhausted. And I can actually make myself tired emotionally as well. And we do this all the time. Like, we exhaust ourselves in our own mind with the way that we're thinking. But tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to be tired, and I'm going to tell myself, this is fine. Like, I'm going to rest, I'm going to take care of me, and then this afternoon I'm going to get my work done. And I may have a lack of physical energy, but I'm not going to waste any of my mental energy spiraling out about it. And I'm going to save all of that mental energy for my work, and I'm going to make sure my headspace is positive. But this is what I want to end on, guys. We feel scarce in a lot of different areas, but if you had to start on one area that you wanted to feel abundant in, I would love for you to start with how you think about yourself. Because whenever I looked at feeling behind all the time and feeling like there wasn't enough energy and there wasn't enough time and there wasn't enough money, I'll be honest, I think the thing that really didn't feel like was enough was myself. And I just kept seeing that everywhere. And we're always going to see what we believe. So I would love if you had to pick somewhere to focus. I honestly think believing that you are enough right where you're at is a great place to start. Because think about this. If there genuinely wasn't enough money to pay the bills, but you felt really settled in yourself and you knew that you as a person were enough and your worth and value wasn't in question, I think it would be okay. You know what I mean? Like, you would figure out the money, you would figure out the math. But no amount of money can make you feel good enough. If you have a belief and a mindset that you are not enough, it doesn't matter how much money you get, it's not going to change that. You're just going to keep bringing that mindset with you into every new phase of your life. So it's got to come from you. And half the time we're using all of these other things just to, fill some sort of external void. Part of the reason that we don't have enough time and enough energy is we are overextending ourselves and we are overfilling our schedule. Sometimes because we're trying to people please and we're looking for other people to make us feel valuable because we don't feel good enough in and of ourselves. And we can't imagine saying no and one person being disappointed because we're still looking to the outside world to decide whether or not we're good enough. But when you know that you're fine, when you know that you're valuable, when you know that you're worthy, when you know that you are more than enough, it's so much easier to do the work and make the money and say no and manage your time and take care of your body and rest when you need to, because we're not in a rush to get to some future place that we think is better. We're just doing it because we want to. And that, if anything, that I could end on, there's just this really fascinating concept that changed scarcity for me probably more than anything else. And that was, and the thing that moved me towards abundance was realizing it's not better there. But that's what scarcity is. There's not enough here, and I need to get to some future place where it's better. And when I get there, or when all these things are different, then I will feel differently. I will feel better. I will feel happy. And we're kind of waiting for our outside circumstances to change in order to feel happier or feel better. But it was crazy. Whenever all that stuff changes, like if you had a little bit more time and you had a little bit more money, or maybe you had a little bit more energy, life doesn't suddenly become perfect and everything's sunshine and rainbows. It's still going to be a mix of positive and negative. It's still going to be a mix of good stuff and hard stuff. And we're in such a rush to get there because we actually have this belief that once we get there, everything's going to be fine. And it's not. Like, it's still just going to be a mix. And whenever I really realized that this future that I was rushing towards was going to be different, but not better on an emotional level, it gave me so much freedom just to settle into today. Today's a mix of positive and negative emotions, and my future is going to be a mix of positive and negative emotions. And the choice that I can make is to feel grateful and present right here. And I can choose how I think and feel right here and not be in a rush to get there. I can decide what I feel now, and I choose to feel these things here. And I've made my present so much more enjoyable that I don't feel a rush to get elsewhere. Okay, my friends, those are my thoughts on abundance and scarcity and all those things. And I would love if we have, Amy, I don't know how much time we have. My hope was to be able to open it up to questions, but you let me know where we're at.
Yeah, we absolutely can. Does anyone have any questions for Lorrie? I'm both on the webinar and on Facebook Live. So I'm looking at both. I just have to say, Lorrie, I so appreciate everything you're saying. This is just so on par with, well, all the good books. I myself feel like I can relate to every single thing that you've shared in the scarcity mindset, and I struggle with all of them. I think a lot of it's human nature, but I really appreciate what you wrapped up with, because I feel like it's so easy, especially in today's, I don't know, culture, how we live in our Western society, that it's really easy to always be reaching for that carrot.
Yes.
And we're missing out on so much, if we're not enjoying the journey, what's the point? What's it for? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that the marketing and the consumerism, it definitely ties into it. And yeah, it's all over. And that ownership and that conscious choice, it really does have to be a conscious choice. I don't think anybody stumbles into feeling abundant, not in today's world. Like, I don't know if
conscious
anybody,
effort.
It's super, super conscious effort. And like I said, my mindset around these things are good, but it's because I work on it every day. Like every day I do this, every day I spend time on it. And I have to tell my brain every day what I want it to think about stuff. Otherwise it goes to doom and gloom right away.
Right. Same. And I feel like all of this stuff that we're talking about, it's just so timely in that, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I just think it all fits in because it is our mental health. Whether or not we have a diagnosed, mental health issue, we all need healthy mentality. And so regardless of where you are or not on the spectrum, I think these are healthy practices to have. And back to we talk about our lifestyle choices all the time in dōTERRA, but this is a huge part of it.
I really, yes, that's so good. And I talk to my clients all the time. Even though I focus on my coaching and mindset, we really look at things holistically, because our brain is an organ, right? Like it's an actual organ in our body, and it's having thoughts. And so if it's not physically healthy, it's really hard for it to do a good job with this thinking thing. And it just doesn't work well if it's off. And I love that you brought up mental health, and with this, one of the things I feel like so often, though, people are just really looking at, it's like either you have a mental illness or you don't. Okay, but on the other side of that line, where we don't have a mental illness, I'm like, I don't want to just be one step on the other side of not having a mental illness. There's a whole spectrum and range of excellent mental health, and this place of like, okay and good and getting there and getting to that place where we have really, really phenomenal mental health is this mix of things. Part of it is taking care of that actual physical organ that is our brain, and part of it's teaching it how to think. And those two things are always working in tandem and back and forth to get to this spot. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said earlier about, well, just giving us ideas in those affirmations, how we can make them more believable as a baby step. Because that's something that I know I've struggled with in the past. I've done, I don't know if you've heard of Kirk Duncan, but I've done some of his stuff, and I know a lot of our team members have. And I know that that's always hung me up, where I'm like, well, that's really not believable. I'll just keep telling myself that. But I love the idea of breaking it down to something just a baby step above where your thought process and your belief is right now.
Yes.
Just so that it's a little bit higher energy, higher caliber. And then you believe that, and then you baby step to the next thing. So that was huge. That really stood out to me.
It's been a game changer for me, because I struggled with the affirmations thing. I'm like, it's not true. And I read the book Affirmations, and I know that it's a book that filters around in our dōTERRA teams, but Affirmations, where we ask questions and then we let our brain come up with answers, like that was also helpful for me, but not quite as helpful as this. But I'm always looking for, what do I currently believe, and just picking something that's almost believable, like where when I hear it, like especially those thoughts where I'm like, okay, I believe this sometimes. So like I can almost get on board with this. And those are the ones that I just work on and work on and work on. And I'll tell you guys, the way that I'll do this is I will decide what the new belief is that I want to believe, and I'll write it at the top of a sheet of paper. And then I will go to a place in my mind. I'm like, if I already believed that, like if I already believed I was good enough, or if I already believed that all this was taken care of, like what would I be thinking and what would I be feeling right now? And I almost do like a mind dump or a thought download, and I practice thinking from this future version of myself that's already got this figured out. And that's been game changing, because we're so much in like where we're at right now. And right now we might be in scarcity, and abundance feels really, really far away. And so sometimes I do these ladder thoughts, but I'll say the other thing that I do is I sometimes skip the ladder altogether, and I'm just like, okay, but what if I was there? If I was already there, if I actually already believed that all these things were true, how would I think about this situation? What would I be doing right now? What would I be thinking? What would I be feeling? And because I do believe if I do those steps, like if we ladder up and we do these believable baby steps, that we're going to get to abundance someday. Like we actually are going to get there. And I believe, I would believe that there's a future version of myself who really does live in abundance. And I would tune into that, because girl, we've all got so much more wisdom inside of ourselves than we give ourselves credit for. Like we don't necessarily need another book or another person to tell us how to do this. We just need to tune in to ourselves and kind of listen to ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions? Do you guys know how to type into the chat box? And then we've got people online too. I appreciate what you said there, Angelina. Yeah, the ladder technique, loving it. She says it's such a phenomenal concept, makes change so much easier, like breaking tasks into smaller, multiple tasks. Love that.
I agree. Yeah, and some people call them bridge thoughts. I've heard a number of different names. Bridge thoughts, ladder thoughts.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I don't see any questions right now.
We did so good. We just answered all of them.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I'll take that as a win. But yeah, but like I'm glad. I do want to, throw this up there, but
yeah, tell us about your sessions. So for those of you guys listening, Lorrie does this professionally. She's an incredible life coach, and you're actually doing group sessions right now, right? With with some other team members, and
yeah,
got
so
a lot of setups.
Yeah, I've got a number of things going on. Really getting on my mailing list and just keeping up to date with what's happening, because there's actually a bunch going on. But yeah, I do coaching, with my dōTERRA team and sort of wider group stuff. That's very fun. But most of my days are spent really working one-on-one with people individually. I work with a variety of people on a variety of subjects, because as you guys probably saw from what we did today, this sort of process of learning to believe new things and change mindsets and understanding how it affects emotions, it really works for just about anything. And so I basically, what I will do is I do mini sessions with people, and you can book those, through my website. And I just like to meet with someone and sort of hear where they're at. And typically I can tell after that session whether or not I think we would be a good fit. And if we are, I will offer them the ability to work with me. And if not, I might recommend a different coach, because not everybody's going to be a good fit for every coach. But I do work with people individually. But I will say right now I've got, I need to actually double check 1, maybe 2 spots open on my individual roster to do one-on-one coaching. So if you guys are interested in that, go over and book it now. And I will probably be taking that off my website as something you can book by the end of May or sometime in June, because I've got a book coming out.
Oh, yay!
It's very fun. Guys, I'm so excited about this. And that's what I'm saying. Go get on my mailing list so you know when it comes out. But I wrote a book really about the process of learning how to love my body and love myself. And I dealt with a lot of body image issues most of my life, and then a lot of stuff with my chronic health issues. And so I wrote it all down in a book, and we're almost done. So that's going to be coming out this summer, and we're doing some group programs off of that, and just all kinds of fun stuff happening. But all that to say, it's all going to be changing in the next few months. So you're just going to need to follow me on Instagram, or get on my mailing list, or just check back in with my website to know what's up. But
that's awesome. And what's your Instagram handle?
The Lorrie Gray.
Oh, I see it right there on the, okay. There it is on the screen. Okay.
And and Lorrie has a lot of extra letters in there, so make sure you get them all. Thank you, Mother, for the extra letters.
Happy Mother's Day.
she said it looked prettier when you wrote it that way with all the letters. I'm like, okay, just add some for R's and stuff in there for fun.
That's awesome.
But like I said, for you guys, there are 1 to 2 individual spots on my roster. And if you're interested in exploring coaching with me, just go book a mini session, and we'll just see if it's a good fit, and we will go from there. But I'm really, this was super fun, Amy. I'm so glad that we got a chance to do this. And yeah, you're just amazing. This was super fun.
Me too. I so appreciate this. I really needed this today. I don't know about you guys, but I need all the help I can get. I just want to say that, the people who are really successful in life, who I admire, and I would say I'd safely say all the high ranks in dōTERRA, they all have this in common, and that they work on themselves. They work on their mindset, like it's a big part of their business. I mean, a big chunk of it. In fact, people will tell you, I was just visiting with Andy and Natalie Goddard last month in their home, and we were sitting down, and I was asking them questions. It was a lot of fun. They do the Share Success, for those of you that don't know, and they're the ones that gave this really great training system to dōTERRA, the Live, Share, Build guides. They created those on their own, and then just gave it to dōTERRA. But they all say, they work on themselves so much, and it pays off. Like if you have everything clear in your mind, and you're working on that mindset and your energy is everything. I'll tell you, I struggle with this all the time. Like I think, if I just keep working when I'm really drained and my mindset is just blah, I'm telling myself awful things like I suck or whatever. Right. And the thing is if you're working that energy in that space, you're fighting against yourself. Like sometimes the best thing is to walk away, go on a walk, go on a run, work on yourself, or just clear your mind and step away from it. And then when I come back, oh my gosh, or if I just listen to my affirmations just for a few minutes, even if it's 5 minutes, the energy that I have when I come back to it is just amazing. I can get stuff done in a fraction of the time. So it's not just that it's a good thing. It's like everything.
I agree, because and this is with the group coaching that I'm doing for my dōTERRA team right now. We're actually not doing a lot of the actual training part, because whether it's dōTERRA or it's anything that we're doing, you can find, and I think at leadership, actually, Rachel Hollis, when she spoke at Leadership Retreat, she said this too, that you can find anything you need for free on the internet.
That's right.
Like, it's all out there. It's all out there. And dōTERRA at this point has all of these videos and like amazing training stuff and all of the guides and all of the how-tos are there. I mean, basically, you know, if we're running a business, I'm like, the hows of pick up the phone and call 2 new people a day, that's not mechanically complicated.
No, right? It's so simple. Yeah.
It's so simple. The problem is that our actions are driven by our emotions, and our emotions are coming from our thinking. And so if we are thinking, I suck, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then
how's that working for me?
I know, right? Like most of us aren't going to pick up the phone and call people when we're feeling like we really suck. And yeah, so when people ask me about like successful business, I'm not sending them, what they're wanting to know are things like they want to know, they want to know all these tools and things. And I'm like, every time I bring it back to self-coaching. And that's why it's one of the things in my coaching with people that I insist my clients do, is that they self-coach every day, because if you can do that, you can do anything. I'm like, anything in your business that you don't know how to do, as long as you know how to generate feelings of courage and feeling capable and committed, you're going to go do it. Whereas if you're feeling overwhelmed, you probably aren't.
Oh my gosh. So much truth there.
It's fun, but yeah, I mean, like, and I don't like to like oversimplify things. Like, there are so many people out there teaching some really, really phenomenal things. But for me, sometimes I just felt like I was holding a lot of concepts all separately. And I honestly did get a little overwhelmed by the things in my mind, and breaking it down to this really simple, what's the thought I'm thinking and how does it feel? And what do I do when I feel that way? And just, I break it down that way, and I break it down for my clients, and we spend time choosing thoughts that serve us and practicing them.
Nice.
And
I love it.
It's been, anyways, I'll say for me personally, it's been life-changing. I'm in a different place in my life and my relationship with myself and my business than I ever thought I could be. Just choosing these thoughts on purpose and practicing them. Yep.
Yeah, it's so simple, isn't it? It's just crazy.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think sometimes we overcomplicated it a little bit.
I know I do. Hey, one last question for you before we hop off, Lorrie. You mentioned a book. What was that? Affirmations?
Affirmations. Yes. AFFOR. What's his name? Forget who did it. No, I think Noah St. John.
And is it 2 words or?
No, it's just 1 word.
Affirmations. Okay.
Affirmations book. Yeah, Noah St. John.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a great principle. He talks about the fact that our brains answer questions, and they're always looking for answers. And so if we wake up and we say, "Oh my gosh, why am I such a screw up? What's wrong with me?"
Right?
Your brain's supplying answers because it thinks that's what you want to know, and then it comes up with all these negative things. Instead, if we look at it, it's like, why am I going to kill it today? Like, why am I the right person for this?
Right.
Why is this going to work out for me?
Ask yourself some expansive questions.
Ask some expansive questions. And then you'll get some expansive, empowering answers, because our brains are it's like a computer. It's a tool. Most of us are just really not utilizing it as well as we could.
Oh, it's so true. We can all improve. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, if we were to wrap it up really quick, do you have one quick nugget? Maybe it's like, if you don't like your story, change your story. Maybe that.
Oh, that's such a good one. Yeah, but I think even just recognizing. Yes, no, but I mean, but it's fantastic. I think that most of us, though, don't even realize that it is a story, right? Like we it's hard to distinguish between the facts and what we think about the facts. And Yeah, I would do that work. Take that time to know what the facts don't change, but your story about them is always, always, always within your control. And if you're going to choose one anyway, I'd pick one that feels awesome.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. Well, Lorrie, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And for those of you listening and catching this later, I hope you enjoy it. And don't forget to check out Lorrie on Instagram and Facebook and sign up for her newsletter.
Amazing.
All right. Thanks so much, you guys. And thank you, Lorrie.
You are so welcome.
Have a good one.
All right. Bye, friend.
Bye.